Yes, we have gardeners saying, well, I grow nutritious food. It's more nutritious than what I can get in the grocery store or what I can order online or shipped in from California or anything else. And the answer is, well, how do you know that? So have you ever seen one of these gurus present the numerical data of the chemical analysis to look at that?
No,
No, of course
no,
not. Of
no,
course not. Right? And they don't do that part.
no.
And in fact, it's really hard to find numbers for homegrown food.
Yes.
Okay, because there's no money in that research, right? I mean, there are no you can get research studies that have looked at this on farms, and they might go, well, we've got two different ways of doing agriculture, and we compare the nutrition of one to the other. That you find. But as far as backyards go, nobody ever analyzes the nutrition of your tomato. Okay,
Yes.
that data is not available. And if it is, please post it below because I'd like to see it. So when a gardener says, this technique produces more nutritious food or vermicompost produces more nutritious food, they're just guessing. They don't have the data for that.
No, I often feel like if I started doing videos where I was doing like one arm push-ups and one arm pull-ups and stuff like that, and I was saying this has something to do with the food coming out of my garden because I use organic methods and so on, and it's so nutrient dense. I feel like those videos would do really, really well because it's just like a thing people want to hear, right?
Yeah. Now, having said everything I said, it doesn't mean that our homegrown food isn't good, right? We're not saying it's
Oh,
less nutritious. We're just saying the evidence to prove it's more nutritious isn't there, right?
yes,
And I think what home gardeners really need to do, quite honestly, is forget the nutrition part, because there is no way for them to know how nutritious their food is. Okay.
yes,
So for instance, right now I'm, got seed catalogs. I'm looking through them. I'm trying to pick which tomatoes am I going to grow next year? And I'm
yes,
thinking, I want nutritious tomatoes. Which ones are those? There is zero data to tell you that. Okay. You cannot look up a list of tomatoes somewhere and say, okay, the gold suns are really nutritious for this vitamin or something else, or whatever the purple ones are and so on. Yeah, there's no data for gardeners, right?
yes,
So you're just guessing. And nutrition in food depends very much on the cultivars. It depends on your soil and it depends on where you're growing them. Okay. And there's no way for a gardener to figure out which one of these is more nutritious.
mm,
So forget that part. Okay, let's focus on the quality of the food. Okay, the reason you garden and the reason you get this food is quality. Quality can be measured in different ways. One is how fresh is it?
mm,
Okay, I mean the reason I garden is that I love to go out and get a fresh tomato off the vine. I
yes,
cannot do that in the store.
yes.
That's quality. That's a form of quality. I can't do that anywhere else. I can go out and my favorite tomato of all time is Sweet 100s.
They're really good. Yeah,
I
they're
like a
really
sweet
good. Yeah,
tomato.
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. They're
And
really
it
good.
probably has too much sugar for me, but I don't care.
Who
I
cares?
love sweet tomatoes. So I grow them because I can't buy them in the grocery store,
Yes.
right? So that's quality. That's flavor. So that's something I can measure because I put in my mouth and I say, hey, this one's better than that one. And I like it better. It doesn't mean it actually tastes better. It just means that I like it better. They can grow things that are fresh, that they like the color of, that grow well in their garden, they're
Yes.
productive, and so on. Those are things we can measure. We can't measure nutrition. Okay, so don't get hung up on that, right?
Well, also, like if let's say you grow a tomato and I grow a tomato,
Yeah.
and your tomato has 10% more vitamin C than mine. Who cares?
Well, it
Right?
makes no
Like
difference. We don't care.
your
No,
tomato has 6% more lycopene than mine. Who cares?
who
Like,
cares?
if mine tastes better than yours, I'm going to eat more tomatoes and I'm going to get more lycopene.
Well, that's the other thing, the advice I give to people, I say, you know what? It's more about how much you eat. Okay. So if something is 10% more or less, who cares? If you eat an extra slice of tomato, you made up the 10%, right?
Yes.
So the more you eat, the quantity you eat is probably more important for most gardeners than the nutritional value.
Yeah, like if you're growing some variety of spinach, for instance, what's spinach famous for? Iron, maybe
Iron.
calcium. So let's say iron. So you're growing a variety of spinach, and your variety of spinach is the best spinach for iron, but it doesn't grow well in your backyard. There's another variety of
Yeah, that's
spinach
right.
that has 80% as much iron that grows really well in your backyard. Well, that's the one you should be growing, right?
Right.
Because it
Because you
grows
you
well.
you have to think in not in terms of sort of percent of nutrition. You have to think in terms of the quantity you grow, right? And the
Yeah.
total amount. Huh. Now, spinach is a really interesting one since you picked on spinach and
Yeah.
iron. So when I was growing up, I really didn't like spinach. Now, part of the reason was that my mother's from Europe, we're Austrian, and the way she made spinach was she pureed
Oh,
into a very, very thick, gloopy, soupy type thing.
oh
And then
my
in the
God.
middle of in the middle of your plate, you put in a barely cooked egg. So it's still runny and gooey and so on. So that
This
was
is a
spinach.
disaster. Yes.
Okay,
Okay.
I hate it. I hated
Oh,
spinach.
yes. I don't blame you.
But when I was growing up, there was this guy hanging around called Popeye.
Yes, Popeye.
He
Yes.
was very strong because he ate spinach. And one of the reasons that spinach was so good was because of the high amount of iron.
Yes.
Well, it turns out that spinach doesn't actually have that much iron in it.
Okay.
It's higher than some vegetables,
Yes.
probably higher than lettuce and so on, but there are other vegetables that are just as high. It's not super high. Okay,
Right.
that's number one. The other thing is, it's when we're talking about nutrition, we also have to look at what happens to it in our bodies.
Right.
So, what happens in spinach is spinach also makes a lot of oxalic acid.
Yes.
Oxalic acid is
Yes.
the toxic compound that you find in rhubarb.
Yeah, it's a pesticide, basically. Yeah.
Well, it is toxic to people in higher amounts.
Yeah.
Okay, now the myth about rhubarb leaves being toxic is another myth, so
Yes.
well,
Another thing.
don't worry about that. But that oxalic acid combines with the iron, so they form a compound that we can't digest.
Oh.
So spinach has a lot of iron, has a lot of oxalic acid. They combine into this molecule that goes through our system and comes out the other end.
Oh.
So even though spinach has a lot of iron in it, we can't digest it because it's combined with oxalic acid. So that's
Right.
another aspect of these nutritional things, right?
Right.
What happens to that compound when it's in our gut and in our stomach and so on? And what are the reactions in there? How do the bacteria affect those things, right?
Yes.
So as far as our body's concerned, spinach is not high or not iron. Now, sorry, let me reword that. As far as our bodies are concerned, we don't extract much iron from spinach,
Right.
right? So that's my reason I never eat this stuff because I really don't like it. It's just
I wonder what an effect cooking has, because cooking can, oxalic acid, I think, is water soluble to some extent.
yes.
So if you cook it like
Cooking
that,
cooking actually separates these compounds. So
right.
it releases iron and makes it more digestible when you're eating it.